Hi guys, I'm going to show you a couple ways to make retro flight plans, and of course this varies depending on if the airline is a charter airline, scheduled airline, and then charter airlines of course are going to have different types of operations. So if you want to make the flight plans realistic, then you're going to have a little bit of knowledge and put in a little bit of work into the research. So we're going to start with a small scheduled airline, Ultra Air, which flew 727-200s in the early 90s. They started off as a all VIP airline, all first class rather, based out of Houston. That business model was they were getting their asses kicked by Continental, so they moved to the East Coast and I think to New York, and then they switched to be a scheduled carrier in '94. So in '93, when they were the all first class carrier based out of Houston, no one had flight plans for that. So I am doing those. So the first thing you're going to need is a schedule. Cool. So we have a schedule. Find them on eBay. A lot of times you have to buy them. Sometimes you get lucky. There'll be something like this on eBay where it's all printed on one page and you can read it. Just make sure that's the whole schedule if it's only printed on one page. There's timetable images. There's a lot of websites, but a lot of the ones that are online have already been done by people. But you know, it never hurts. Just check. Make sure you don't waste your time. So here's the schedule. The next thing we'd want to do is create a new text document, a notepad. Whoops, Ultra Air 1993. Let's name it the airline and the year. Open that up, and now we would need the 2-letter code of the airline, which in this case we have right here. And we know they had all 727-200s, so even though there's no aircraft listed here, it doesn't really matter. I'd recommend you use RZ Jets, this website. Go to operators, Ultra Air, yeah. There they are. Airline of the Americas is an airline they bought. Cool. Here they are. It gives you a little history. In this case, the 2-letter IATA code is missing, but luckily it's on the schedule, so we have it. And the 3-letter code is ULT that we're going to use for parking in the sim, because the gates will be coded for them. And then Ultra Air is their call sign. So we have that. And then in here we even have the fleet. And another really good resource is this deregulation knockouts round 2 and round 1. Round 1 is the 80s, round 2 is the 90s, and it covers airlines that started after the US deregulated the airline industry in 1978 through, in this case, up to 2005 for round 2, and all the airlines that started and went out of business in that time. Tom Norwood covers them and gives a lot of information. A lot of it you can't really find on the internet, so I don't know where he got it all. It's pretty cool. And he even lists, in most cases, the codes and call signs, and he has the fleet here, but you know, only some airlines have this. You can't count on it. Here on the Retro AI forums, I have another good resource, the JP Fleets books, 98, 99. So this is later. It's not going to help us now, but if you click on these, one of my buddies, Richard Salagi, old school Bay Area aviation photographer, he went ahead and put the digital versions of these up and let me share them with everybody, so thank you, Richard. And you can see, if we go through this resource, you have the tail numbers and everything, and you have the it'll tell you the call signs. These are bad examples because a lot of these are smaller little Canadian carriers that don't have call signs. Let's go to this random page. Oh, for the love of fucking Christ. So here's how we would read this, right? Let's pull up Comair. So if you're doing flight plans within these years, we'd read this. That's the name of the company, Comair Inc. OH is the IATA code, 2-letter. The 3-letter is COM. Delta Connection. ICAO, that's the call sign, their radio call sign, Comair. So we have it. Their radio call sign is Grasshopper X. Colvin Aviation, Grasshopper X. That's why you don't make things up. Who would have guessed that, right? So you look it up. So even if the airline you're doing is for different years, but it was in business in 1998, then you can use this. And then down here, it even breaks it down into special liveries, kind of engines it has, the seating capacity, former livery. So anyway, so what we're going to do, and I'll show you there's 2 ways to do this, is we are going to type out this notepad to put this information in a format that this program from the 2000s will understand. It's called MRAI Flight Plans Compiler. Most realistic AI. They created a lot of flight simulator packages in the early to mid 2000s. We still use this today, To install it into a modern operating system, you got to get, it's kind of a pain in the ass. For me, I had to make it run in Windows XP compatibility mode, then it was missing all this crap. When I tried to open it up, it's like, we're missing this DLL file, missing that one. Turned out I had to download a runtime package from the 2000s, so, because I'm not going to go through all that shit again. But you'll figure it out. You just got to just Google around, find the runtime package that has those DLLs. You're a big boy. You can do it. So, for this to be able to read the flight plans and compile them into something we can put in the simulator and show the planes, we want to type this out in this method right here. It is 2-letter code, which is known as the IATA code, and then semicolon, and then flight number, semicolon, origin, semicolon, destination, semicolon, departure time in a 24-hour format, arrival time, 24-hour format, days of the week, and let me do this so you guys can see word wrap, days of the week, and then aircraft type, which we do the 3-letter thing, right? So I'm just leaving that there for a second so you guys can see. So the 2-letter code is RL. First flight on the list is flight 504, which goes from Houston to Newark, IH to EWR. And in this case, I'm going to copy that so I can just paste it for the next flight. It's like 0800 departure, 1223, very specific, arrival. It doesn't specify that any of these flights are not daily. Oh wait, hold on, yeah it does, you got to look out. Daily except Saturday and Sunday. So this one actually operates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1 is Monday, 7 is Sunday. That's how you put it in the sim, and that's how the aviation world works, and everything's a 24-hour clock, just like in aviation. So this flight operates 5 days a week, and it is a 72S, 727-200. We know that because that's all they flew. The next flight, flight 502, 1700, remember, 24-hour clock, 2136 arrival. And this one, daily except for Saturday. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 72S, done. Okay. So then we jump down to the next route. The next route is Houston to LA. So flight RL 505 from IH to LAX. Copy that. 0730, 0900, and then it's got 2 asterisks, which means it's daily except for Saturday, Sunday, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, weekday only. Next flight, 509, 1505, 1643, and 2 of them, so that one is also just 5 days a week. Flight 507, 1905, 2035. It's got 1 asterisk, so I guess the airline didn't operate on Saturdays, okay? So these ones, I just showed you how to do it, just manually typing it in. Now, that's how I prefer to do it if it's a small airline like this, because it's fast. If it were a larger airline, my buddy Justin Sutton, who's part of my 98 project and an airline pilot and sim enthusiast in real life, he created this route creator, and it's got instructions right here. I have a link to it. It's hosted in my Google Drive. I'll show you the basics of how we would use this, and we're going to use this for the return flights going back to Houston. So you put in the airline's 2-letter code, RL, and then we put in the flight number. So we're starting here, flight 501, and the departure. He wrote that just because I don't want people to confuse it with times. Origin. I'm going to put origin there and save that. Sure. What the bloody fuck? Dude. So origin, and the reason I changed that is because I was about to put a time, but obviously it's the city that you want. So from Newark to Houston, EWR to IH. Don't have to put the 0 here actually. So it departs at 7, arrives at 9:40, 2 asterisks. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the days. 72S, and since we know everything we're doing is going to be a 727, you can grab it in the corner. Oh no, that's not what I meant to do. Whatever. I'm just having a brain fart. There's a way on Excel and LibreOffice, whatever you're using for this sheet, to just drag it down. But you can watch tutorials. I mean, I'm not going to figure out what the hell I'm going wrong here. It doesn't really matter. So we'll do the next flight, and notice the output here. The next flight is flight 503, and I guess I could have done the same here. And it departs at 1800, 2042, and operates every day except for Saturday. It's got one asterisk, right? So here we are. Look at that. So I'll go ahead and I'll paste these two, and then I'll jump down here just to create some space, make it easier to copy. We'll do the return flights from LA to Houston. So you got flight 508, LAX, and we know we're doing 3 flights to IAH, which I could have just copied up there too. So you can see you can be really efficient with this. I'm just being whatever about it, but if you get into it, you can do it really efficiently. And departs 6:45, 11:45 arrival, and operates on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like the other flight operates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the other one 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. I'm just going to do that to save time. Flight 508, 506, 510. See, now that I've explained it, I'm just going a little faster. 1305, 1850 for the 2 departure times, 1805, and 2350 for the arrival times. Cool, so we don't even need that, whatever. So now we take this info, and that's how Justin's great tool works. Paste it here. Now before we compile, we just want to make sure everything matches up. So put them together, and the compiler, if the flight simulator reads the airline in a 7-day period. So every plane that goes to starts in a city, so this plane starts its week in Houston on Monday. If it's not back in Houston by Monday night, then the sim can't figure out what to do with it. So let's say you'll see a lot of times schedules are wrong. Maybe it's a misprint because everything was typed back then, or whatever the case. But you might find stuff like this where it shows daily in one direction, and then the way back it shows not operating on Saturday. Well, the sim won't let you do that. So when you run into those errors, you're going to have to make sure this stuff matches. But luckily for us, looks like this plane arrives. You got 2 flights that operate 5 days a week, and then you got 2 flights that operate 6 days a week except Saturday. So that checks out. Whoops, S. And then same thing here. And then putting them together like this makes it easy to look for errors, and then also if we get errors, then it'll be easy to fix. So now, just like that, we're done. Let me get rid of that for you guys. So save. And now here's the next step. We're going to open up Flightplan compiler. There's Ultra Air 1993. See, it pulled it all up. And then it wants to know what's the minimum turnaround time between flights. Now, standard would be, I mean, normally it depends on the airline. Some airlines, a 727 will always be 45 minutes to an hour, whatever. Some airlines will do crazy stuff, be 15, 20 minute scheduled turns that are probably delayed all the time, but that's why they're out of business, right? So I'm going to put 30 for now, but before I do, let's look at one of these. This one gets into LA at 9 a.m. Next departure is 1:05. Looks like this airline just 2 hours. So Ultra Air, being an all first class airline with just a couple flights a day, looks like they had really long turn times. So I'm just gonna put 30 because that's realistic. That's enough time. Because of the nature of their operation, I'm gonna put 45. So when the sim tries to connect everything, if a plane would be sitting on the ground for less than 45 minutes, then it's gonna break it off and create another aircraft. So if you do longer turn times, then you're gonna create more aircraft for the fleet needed for the plans, obviously, but then also you're gonna alienate any flight that needed a shorter turn time. So if the whole airline schedule is 30-minute turns for 737s, for example, and then they have one random flight where it's a through flight, let's say the plane goes from like, I don't know, Miami to Fort Lauderdale to JFK, and nobody really gets off in between Miami and Fort Lauderdale, just people that get on to go to JFK. Maybe that plane's only on the ground for 15 minutes or 20 minutes in the schedule. When you go to compile, that's going to screw everything up because the sim's going to be like, hey, this flight doesn't fit anywhere, and then you're going to get extra aircraft and broken up flights, and you're going to have to figure out what went wrong, and what went wrong you're going to find out is the turn times. So 45 minutes, compile, I just save it to my desktop. Cool beans. Alright, cool. So there it is. Everything we're going to need. So now here's the next step. I'm going to hit rename, highlight, Control C, or you could right click copy, make a folder, name it the same thing. This is where we're going to put the flight plans, right? Now there's 3 components you need for the flight plans. Aircraft, and paste, airports, paste, and flight plans, paste. And for the airports, if you're doing an airline that's flying to Austin, Texas in the 90s, that was using a different airport. Denver Stapleton was still in use instead of the current Denver airport. Hong Kong Kai Tak. So just make sure you're using the right airports. In this case, these are all the same airports then as they are now. So we copy that, paste, there we go. Next step here, we go to our flight plans, right? So when we make flight plans using this method, looking at a schedule and running MRAI compiler, then we don't have to put FSX days equals false. I'll explain to you when we do a charter airline why we do that. So here you don't have to do that. So just my own thing, I'll put 727-200, make space. Here we go. There's the aircraft. And now we don't need this anymore. So we know that it's one aircraft type, a 727, and when it compiles, it'll give you the code. And if the reason you do the code is, let's say we were doing a whole schedule to an airport all at once, and you just want to put all the airlines on one sheet. Well, you could do that if you do the code, and it'll break it down to individual airline type by that aircraft. So if we had Alaska Airlines 727s, those would be in their own thing. Or if you're doing an airline like United Express, that's actually a whole bunch of airlines, or Delta Connection, or British Airways City Flyer, like all these airlines that had these different operators under one banner, then you want to use the code, because in the example of United Express, we could do the Embraer 120, and that could be flown by Mesa, it could be flown by Wings West, it could be flown, or not, sorry, Wings West, I'm retarded, West Air, or it could be flown by Great Lakes, whatever. So then we'd want to put the codes so that the sim breaks down and you have the right aircraft, the right airline. You don't have a Great Lakes Embraer 120 in LA instead, you know, if those were based out of Chicago, just in this example. So now the only thing it doesn't do for you is your aircraft sheet, right? So you do aircraft number 1, right? We'll just make it number 1, and then these will all become number 1. You put the cruise speed, which to get the cruise speed, I will put a link to this. Where is it? I'll pull this up. Here are the cruise speeds. Alpha India Group, AIG, they put a lot of research into making the planes climb, descend, do everything at the right time. So we put in 727. These are the standard cruise speeds. People get lazy and they put 477. I'll admit I do that too. Sometimes I don't care. But if we want to be correct, then 407 would be the cruise speed. And I'll just keep this up for the other flight plans we're doing. So we'll say aircraft number 1, 407, quotes, it's a 727-200, and basically what's going to have to go in here is the aircraft we're using on the sim, but that is for installing the flight plans. And I'm not going to show you how to install the flight plans because there's other videos for that, but in the end, when the users download your flight plans, they're going to have to go into their prepared FS 2004, FSX, whatever they're using, folders, find their Ultra Air 727, plug in the title here, and that's what they'll have to do, but we don't worry about that. So we just put they need the 727-200. So now we're going to make these all aircraft number 1. When you see the asterisk here, that means that there's something wrong with the flight plan, like it's just something not ideal, and we can tell if we do format word wrap, turn this off. Well, actually, it's easier to see if we have that on. Let me just make this big. Notice how these guys, these two aircraft, go a bit longer, and here it's like split. Well, there's probably something in there where in real life this was done by 3 aircraft, and then the sim ended up having split it up into 4. So that asterisk is just warning us that there's something weird about that plan, but it's a legitimate flight plan, so as long as we're okay with having 4 727s, which they had at least 4 727s, so in this case we're going to keep it. And we'll come back to this later. I'll show you what we'll use this for. And here we have our flight plans minus the aircraft, right? So let's see, what aircraft did Ultra Air? Control F, highlight it. So starting in 93, they had this one. So I'll go ahead and put that in. And, I mean, you know, when you're doing this, you could just put it right here. I guess you could read it all the same. I had it maximized just so you guys could see it better. But let's see, this one delivered in 92. So this was in the fleets. Whoops, sometimes you'll get that kind of shit. Copy a space by mistake. 352 PA. This aircraft was actually, since now, if we were doing this post-merger, if these flight plans were after Ultra Air absorbed Airline of the Americas, then yes, we would make 352 PA part of our fleet. However, just because I'm doing both airlines and did my research, I know if we look here, see I have two different aircraft types because Eduardo Villanueva, he painted both individually, but I know that both these planes came from Airline of the Americas, and in my 92-93 flight simulator traffic, because I got it broken into 2-year periods, and that's what I'm teaching other people to do too, because 3 years and more it gets really messy. 2 years, 92-93, it's still a pretty good representation of that time. So in my 92-93 install, I have both airlines installed, so I don't want the same plane in there twice and whatever. So we're going to go ahead and skip these two aircraft, 728 and 357. So it gets a little complicated, guys. If you want to be accurate, it's not all easy. Wait a second, hold the fucking phone. Airline of the Americas. See, I already forgot. What's the fucking one? 357 PA. Okay, so see, I was wrong. 352 PA was in the fleet, so we'll go ahead. 352 Papa Alpha. That's in the fleet. Alright, cool. And 353 Papa Alpha was leased in November 93. We'll get back to that one. That's basically probably wasn't used in these flight plans because, you know, that's the very end of the year. So let's see. This one also 1193. This one 727 VA. Came from Airline of the Americas. So Eduardo painted these two variations, but it looks like in my plans we're gonna have one more airline, or aircraft in the fleet, so I'll put that there so we know. And this plane leased 893, so that looks better because August 93 this plane was in the fleet more. 720. Oh, interesting. So see, in this case, RZ Jets isn't right. So sometimes RZ Jets, they'll miss things. So 728 VA, Eduardo painted that in the colors of Airline of the Americas because that plane came from there. So we're using that in these, yeah, we're using that in these flight plans. I'm pretty sure that's what he painted with 728. So we're not going to use 727. Yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll keep 727 over in Airline of the Americas and assume they were both over there. And then to do our last aircraft, we will take this one that came in November because maybe the schedule came out during the merger between Airline of the Americas and Ultra Air. Whatever, I'd rather see both airlines represented because they did very different things and they'll serve completely different airports in the same time period. So here we go. It's not always this complicated. This is only complicated because I'm making plans for two parts of the same airline parent company for the same year. So that's why we got to be careful. If this was 1994 when these airlines were completely merged, it wouldn't be a problem. We would just go down and do the whole fleet, and every 727 they had is what they had. But 94 plans already exist. These aren't them. We're doing something different. So we'll get back to Airline of the Americas later when I teach you guys charter plans. So here's our flight plans. They are done. Here is the aircraft. It is done. Here is the airports. Done. So now, congratulations, you've created a complete airline. For me, I would just put in the README and then Ultra Air, and they were operational from, I want to say 92. RZ Jet says 93, but sometimes that is wrong also. It's Started operations in January 93. Okay. Maybe the reason that I heard 92 before is because of Airline of the Americas, because they started in 92. So they were operational from 1993, I believe, to 1994. Yeah, they shut down July 13th, 94. Okay, then I'll put the IATA was RL, ICAO, ULT, or is it UTL? I think it was ULT. It was ULT. Okay. ULT call sign Ultra Air, and I do this so that when people put it in their sim, they know what to make the parking code, and they know what to make the call sign, because a lot of times you'll download a repaint and either the people didn't know or they took a wild guess, and they'll make up a call sign. And if they make up a call sign, there's a 0% chance that it'll be in your simulator. At least if you use the right call sign, either A, it's in the simulator already, especially if you use Edit Voice Pack, which is the call sign tool that you use that allows the flight sim community to keep adding new aircraft types, call signs, city names, everything to your sim, change phraseology, yada yada yada. And Ultra Air, if that wasn't done, you can create it, share it with the community, whatever. But the point is, using the right call sign will make sure the best chance that you get into the simulator and you see everything correctly. You hear over the radio all the call signs correctly. Alright, so I'll save this, and this will be the basis when I upload to Retro AI later. I copy this, and then I'll type out a brief history of the airline, and then for me, I'll just say flight plans by Jason Richardson. Sometimes I'll put my website and shit down there, but I'm being lazy, I don't really care. So here we go. So there we go. We have flight plans ready to compile. What if you're making flight plans and you check and make sure that there's different variations, because if there's more than one Ultra Air livery, then we want to make more than one Ultra Air plane so people who install the liveries don't have to put them in themselves. So it looks like here's all his paints. Paradise used some X Ultra airplanes, so nope. But it was still worth checking, because, and that's a good thing that I did this, because yeah, I want you guys to know. And the next airline that we're going to do, he did paint two of. Oh, he did. So here we go. We find that Eduardo has done two different variations, 728 and 74,318 is the tail numbers, right? Okay, cool. So now we're going to make one little modification. And we already know these flight plans work, so it doesn't matter. I mean, logically, if you're going to install the thing in your own sim, do the livery variations first, install them, and then go ahead and compile, make sure your flight plans work. We're going to create an aircraft number 2, but in this case, Eduardo hasn't uploaded these yet. He shared the screenshots, he hasn't uploaded them, so since I can't install them, whatever. Doesn't really matter. If you look at the tail logos, you can see that there was a slight variation. So this is actually a good learning tool here, because I'm going to go as deep into this as I want, because there's really no, if you're going to make realistic retro flight plans, like if you're not going to BS them and they're going to be good and, you know, it's going to look like it really did. I'm going to put airliners.net. So here we are, airliners.net. If we're going to try to find so we see here that Eduardo did two versions of Ultra Air, and he hasn't uploaded them anywhere yet, which is why I didn't bother doing it before I compile. But when you guys are going to test and compile your flight plans, you might as well make them the final version first. So just for now, because in my own simulator, I only have one livery installed because I don't have Eduardo's. I have one made by another person. And the first thing we want to do, and there's two livery variations, is examine them. What's the difference? Why did he make two? Well, here's the differences. Silver belly. Okay, and this is where you have to have a keen eye, because I didn't know this either. I'm just looking now. And then the tail logos are slightly different. And it looks like this one, we can't see the reg. It looks like some of them had the reg down here, and some had the registration, I mean by reg, up on the nose with a flag. And then also looking at the engines, notice how much these engines look smaller, these are bigger. This is a Super 27, also RE. Super 27, and Michael Pearson has recently released PBR versions of all sorts of totally redone 727 models for every random type of 727 an airline could have had. So that means when we install Eduardo's 727 textures, which we're not going to do today, there's going to be a Super 27 version and a regular 727 version, so RE and regular. So now we know the people installing these flight plans are going to have the flight plans broken down in such a way where we can represent both the normal 727-200 and the RE in the simulator. So the way we're going to figure that out is, and this is just what I'm going to upload, 727-200. Whoops. Actually, you know what? I'll just do this, and then when I install it in the simulator later, when he uploads his liveries, which they're not uploaded yet, you can't download these yet, but once he uploads them and download them, I'm going to put 727 RE, so we know that number 2 is going to be a 727 RE. So 728 VA. Well, I was going to include that as Airline of the Americas, but I guess I misunderstood. So let's go ahead and take that last one, which was the last plane added to the fleet, which probably wasn't in these flight plans anyway because it didn't become operational. If it was added to the airline in mid-November 93, it was probably like December by the time it was operating flights. So it was probably barely in the fleet in 93. So we'll change this to 728 and number 2, and we know that's a Super 27. So let's take a look here and see if there are any other, if I type in RE, are there any other Super 27s? See what the Super 27s are called in here. 728. It doesn't even tell us if it's a Super 27. Really? Alright, well I pulled up airliners.net anyway because before I realized this is a Super 27, there were still the livery differences between them. And the beautiful thing about a lot of AI aircraft in Flight Simulator, which is important, I'm just being OCD there, which is important to understand, is that you can take one single livery like this one, which is for a normal 727, and this one's for a Super, and you could just change the name of the model. If we took 728 VA and we said we don't want it to be a Super 727 with these bigger engines, which by the way are the MD-80 engines. These are the engines used on MD-80, so they're quieter, more efficient, and these are the JT-8Ds, whatever's the normal 727 engines. So if there was another aircraft in the fleet, let's say, that has this livery with the silver belly, the gold, the registration here, whatever, and it's a normal 727, cool. You'll just make another aircraft.cfg entry to represent this livery with those engines. And instead of using the Super 27 model, you will use the 727-200 model, which I can kind of show you, I guess. Well, I thought I had the 727 pulled up. So now, when we're doing livery variations, and see, small airline, and I know I'm taking longer than normal explaining it than just doing it, but now I'm going to type in Ultra Air, and I know because I looked earlier that there's very few photos of Ultra Air, but let's go through our photos of Ultra Air that are available. There's a little more than I thought. Liberty Airlines. It's something else. And let's see what planes had what livery. So 357 PA. Well, we're not using that. January 94. 357 PA. We already decided is going to be an Airline of the Americas. So we'll skip that one. 354 PA. That, as we look at, okay, here's a good example. That one, see, look, it has the gray / silver belly. It looks gray on this plane. And so basically, if we look at this, it has this livery, but it is not a Super 27, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take 354 PA, so as we go through here, I'm closing all the ones that are aircraft that are not in our fleet. 357 PA, not in our fleet. 728 VA. Well, he already did that one, so we can skip it. 12305 is in our fleet. Now, it looks like 12305, as we can see in this picture. I'll make it larger for you. It has the silver belly. It has the more golden updated tail. So the thing is, we don't want to make this aircraft number 2 because we want this aircraft to have this livery, or sorry, we want the aircraft to have this livery, but we want it to have these engines. So I'm going to make that aircraft number 3. So now I'm going to make aircraft number 3, and we're going to change what we call these. So this is going to be 74318. And we're doing this so when people who don't know much download our flight plans and they go to install it, they already know that Eduardo has broken down his repaints by the tail number, so they know that the planes that are 74318 will are supposed to be represented by this livery. If they plug that paint that he did into number 1, then it'll match the way we made the flight plans to make sure everything's realistic. So aircraft number 2 and 728 VA. And now this one, we're going to do the same, but remember, it's not a Super 27, so we'll just do that. Use normal. Doesn't appear that they have hush kits. By the 90s, most had hush kits, but does it have hush kits? I'm just going to say use normal model. It's up to them if they have hush kits. I honestly, looking at this, I can't be 100% sure because there's so many variations of the 727 model out there for the simulator that I don't know if this one uses hush kits or not. So I'm going to say use normal model. So now people know that they have to make, they have 2 liveries, but if they want to install these plans realistically and not be lazy and just have the real looking stuff in their sim, then what they're going to do is they're going to create a second aircraft.cfg entry for this livery to represent this. So now we'll pull the airliners.net crap back up and keep going. Let's find the next aircraft in our flight plans. 74318 is a Super 27 with the gray belly and stuff, so this is going to be number, well wait, he made 74318 in this different livery. I guess in December this plane got a repaint because now it has the silver and it has the registration there and everything, but there's already 94 planes for this airline, which we established, right? So we're trying to represent the 92, 93 version of this airline. So if it used to look like this and then it got repainted to look like this, we're going to use the way it used to look. We will keep Eduardo's paint. And he painted it anyway, so that would be stupid to waste. There it is again. 352 PA is what I'm really looking for. 353 PA is again the newer colors, but then missing so we never found a picture of 352 PA. We could look on jetphotos.net, but I already did that earlier. There's not one there. So we'll just have to take our best guess, and just to create variation, we already created 3 variations. We'll make it so aircraft number 1 represents 352 PA. So there we go. So now we're truly done here with this airline, because we looked up what livery variations were available, so we know what people are going to install and whether or not we should care so much about minor variations. And then we did our research and we saw that we need to create a 3rd variation, which is the new livery represented by this airplane, but using a non-Super 27 model. Super 27 / RE model. There. So you make it even more specific for them, right? So normally to make a route map, we would use this file, because it's just, you glance at it and you put all the routes together. So you would draw a line from Newark to Houston and you put in Newark to LAX, but unfortunately the website, Great Circle Mapper website I use for the route maps, is down. The website's not up right now, it goes down sometimes, so I can't show you that, but that's what we would use this for, and that would be my final step, and then I would upload this and type out a brief history and all that. But we're good. We created an extra variation. You made the flight plans. Okay, so this airline is done. So